Welcome to the Dog Gus Show.
Thank you.
So excited to have a part of that band that's Ottawa based that's going to be playing at Overflow, and they are amazing. And I'm super stoked to talk about the Tragically Hip with these guys because, as everyone knows, I'm a huge hip fan. So this is going to be great to talk with other hip fans, including Dog. But Dog's not quite as big of a fan as I am. But who we got?
We got Little Bones.
Little Bones. What's up, Dan and Dave?
How you doing?
Not too much. What's troubling Gus these days?
I love it. See, this is going to be good. That's one of my favorite songs because my nickname is Gus, obviously, and not because of the Polar Bear song, but my buddies that are also huge hip fans always bring it up. You know, what's troubling you, Gus? You know, and I'm like, nothing. You know, nothing.
Nothing goes quiet.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, where did the band, obviously there's a passion for the music by the Tragically Hip, but how did you guys form? And you've been around for a little while.
Yeah, our first gig was 95, but we started really late 94. Early 90s, we were in another band called Conflict of Interest that played a lot of hip covers, some Neil Young and some Pink Floyd. That was a big part of the repertoire, and Dave can take over the story from there because an agent contacted him, and Dave deals with all of our business dealings. Dave, you want to take it from there?
Yeah, sure. So in 92, I was playing with our old guitar player, one of the original guys, Yvon. And I was playing with him in another band, and he mentioned that his band might be looking for a bass player, but he was apprehensive about sort of taking the other band's bass player, but nobody cared. So once he said that he needed somebody, and I said I was available, nobody else minded that, if I jumped in with the other band as well. I joined what was Conflict of Interest with Dan and Don Richard, Yvon Villeneuve. And actually at the time we had a keyboard player too. It was Yvon's wife at the time. And that was Conflict of Interest. Then we were just a four guys who became Little Bones. We added in another guitar player later. But yeah, 1992 was when I joined the guys. I think February of 92 was my first gig with you guys. And then in 95, we did our first gig as Little Bones. And we had talked about doing something oriented to the young and the hip, or some kind of Neil Young Tragically Hip tribute thing. And then this agent named Steve Reich got us a gig as a hip tribute band. So we did that as our first gig.
It's awesome.
Keep going. I know you got lots of questions.
I do. That's amazing. So, like, when you had the keyboardist, did you do Blue Rodeo, or did you get I only bring that up because of the great Canadian bands that we've had. Obviously, Blue Rodeo's right there. There's always that argument, who's the better band between Blue Rodeo and Tragically Hip. I always lean to the right, to the Tragically Hip, but yeah, and I'm sure you do too. But Blue Rodeo, obviously amazing as well.
Yeah, I think we did two or three of their songs.
Yeah.
So
like when people are coming out to your show, they're expected to. Do you guys change up the music? Have you just sort of try different tunes? Do you do it do you kind of stay with one album that they do or anything like that?
I think we normally do the more popular ones. There's a lot of hip tribute bands, by the way. I've been keeping track over the years. I'm up to 62. Like some are gone, but there's still quite a number of them, and a lot of them do, the deep cuts and all that, which I love as being in the audience to listen to. But we typically don't. We've done them, we've tried them, but they don't fly with most of the audience. So we just stay with the more common ones like Phantom Power and Before almost.
Yeah.
Dave, and Dad?
Yeah, for a while, it was after Phantom Power, the Hips albums, there would be radio play for one or two songs, and we would pick up those songs, one or two songs off the new records, and then they would seem to work for maybe 6 months or so, but then after that, people were not familiar and they wanted to hear the old classics, the Road Apples, the Up to Here, the Fully Completely, the Day for Night. So they kind of lost steam. I think maybe some of us now forget that there was a period where the hip wasn't that popular, even in Canada, right? Because they had sort of I don't know, like I don't want to say peaked because their music for me has always been great. Their albums have been fantastic, but the market changes, things change, and as far as their commercial viability, they did hit kind of a peak and then sort of taper off. And then unfortunately, when Gord Downie got sick, their popularity, people finally started to give them their proper due, or kind of sort of came back to them and gave them their proper recognition and appreciation.
And that spurred another bunch of tribute bands.
That makes sense. You guys have been around the longest, I think, so that's the best part of it.
Well, there's been Road Apples is probably like they were there before us. Strictly Hip,
Kingston, yeah.
Yeah, 92, I think.
Yeah, Strictly Hip out of used to be St. Catharines, now it's Buffalo. They're actually a hip tribute band in Buffalo, and they're still quite active. They have a lot of gigs. It's their they do it like a lot.
Yeah, and Strictly Hip's been doing it for a while too. They're great guys. Our drummer Don Bouchard played a gig with them when they came to town here one time a long time ago, and also the guys from Wheat Kings. We sort of know them as well. I ended up, Little Bones. We were doing a show in Woodbine Park a couple of Canada days ago. We ended up with 3 gigs. We played Woodbine Park. We flew out to Billy Bishop Airport there. Went to Woodbine Park and played at noon. Played in Wasaga Beach at 5 or 5:30, and then played at 9 in Bradford, Ontario. So we managed to get 3 gigs put into the one day. But in the first gig, after us, the guys from Wheat Kings were going on. But they have a variation. I think they add a keyboard player or something, and they do Tom Petty.
Oh.
Yeah, so, they're great guys, too. And they've been at it for a really long time, too.
Yeah, I guess there's no, rivalry or anything like that, because you're all kind of just playing the music that you love, right? Would you say that?
Well, there's no rivalry because we're the best.
Yes, you are.
And there you have it.
Yeah, there you have it.
I'm totally kidding. No, I would love to go see one of the other bands and enjoy their music. I'm sure we're all hip fans, and when you're a musician, you do what you can to try and make ends meet and play a variety of gigs. And so
I actually went down to the Horseshoe Tavern and to catch Strictly Hip when they came into Toronto last year. My wife and I went down, just made a trip out of it. It was a blast. Of course, I get to because I've known Jeremy Hoyle's the lead singer there since the internet was born. We were born, right? And so we've kept in contact over the years, but never met. So that was cool, and they do a great job too.
That's awesome. Yeah. Who was on the phone, by the way?
I don't know. I just hung up on it.
Just kidding.
Telemarketers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, most likely.
Some Blue Rodeo fan.
Yeah.
Pissed off at us.
It's Rob Baker.
Yeah, Rob Baker. Just call him. Hey, boys. Speaking of which, that just leads right into my next question. Have you guys ever met any of the Hip? Like the band? Do they know of you guys? Have you ever spoken to them or met them?
Yeah, I met them live once and once over FaceTime, actually. So both those stories are on our website. But it was the same year we did that kind of rockumentary with the Wheat Kings, Practically Hip, and us. We're 3 hip cover bands that were part of a documentary that was put on and aired across the country. And in that year, 2007, sorry, I was working at the time for Bell Canada and IT, and I was out at a Microsoft meeting in Redmond. And just on the way back from Redmond, at the airport in Vancouver, I was sitting in the lounge, and they came and sat right beside us. I was like, holy shit. I was like to my buddy, like, hey. He was like, what? I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, forget it. Anyway, so I didn't want to interrupt them, but there's no way I was going to regret it for the rest of my life having not approached them. So I saw who looked like the least person that wasn't reading something or engaged, and that was Sinclair. So I went over and talked to him. I said, hey, I'm Dan. I'm in one of those cover bands that plays your stuff on weekends, Little Bones out of Ottawa. He goes, oh, yeah. And I said, we always wondered what you guys thought about us playing, guys covering your stuff. You pissed off at us or what? And he said, no. He goes, thanks for doing that. So I said, would you guys sign for me? And they did. It's up on my wall there. And they said, thanks, Dan. And that was pretty cool.
That's great. They're really down to earth.
And I just basically went around, and I didn't want to bug them, but got them to sign it. And then another time at the when the Kensington Market, now for Plan A, they had a surprise gig in Toronto. My nephew had tickets, or he had a wristband for it. He called me. I happened to be in Toronto for work, and he goes, "Get your ass downtown." I can. I'm in meetings. And anyway, so long story short, he goes, "You want me to get something?" I said, "Yeah, get him to sign a CD." So he FaceTimed me when they were doing it. So he flipped the camera around. So as they were signing, I was, seeing them sign it. And Gord was kind of like, "What are you, on the moon?" And sound like a Schwarzenegger kind of an accent. Johnny Faye, my nephew said, "Hey, you've met Dan before out in Vancouver in 07 at the airport." Johnny Faye leans in and says, "You've gotten smaller." That's about what I remember, but that was fun. And Gord took the CD and scratched out the Tragically Hip and put Dan and Little Bones mixtape when he signed it.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah, so so I've met them.
That's amazing. I was actually in Kingston. My nephew was playing hockey, and he was a goalie. And Rob Baker's son is also a goalie, and we were in the same tournament. And I just sort of went over to him, and he, like same as you, I'm sure. I just sort of didn't want to interrupt him. And we started talking about hockey, and he's a huge. They're all huge hockey fans, but Rob Baker was just so approachable. He was really nice, and I just told him I love the Strippers, and because that's his other band.
Yeah.
And he laughed. He said, "Oh my God, he might be the only guy that likes them." So. But I actually love Rob Baker, so I think that he's one of the best guitarists out of Canada ever. I mean, he's right up there in the top 10 for me anyway, but definitely a solid
me too.
Individual, But great group. I mean, obviously a great group of guys. So.
Are we telling our Tragically Hip stories?
Well, we can. Do you have one?
I have a by proxy one. I have cousins that live in Kingston, and one of them used to babysit for one of the guys from the Hip. She wouldn't tell me which one. But yeah, my cousin used to babysit for one of them. So
that's cool because Gordy ended up living in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
Like he was in, I think he was in Leslieville or something like that. Anyway, yeah. Sorry, we can do this all day.
Let's talk about somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. So Dave, if I was to ask you, what's your favorite album? I'll ask you both, obviously, but Dave, I just want to bring you into this because what would be your favorite album? And it could be obscure from the Tragically Hip because I have my favorites, but I also lean to others. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and actually, this ties into another interesting point about the Hip in the States. So, Trouble at the Henhouse is an album I've always dearly loved. I think the other ones, when it comes to Up to Here and Road Apples, I think because I heard them so much, I don't necessarily appreciate them as much as I used to now, or as much as I would have had they not been played so much, had I not been hearing them so much. Do you know what I mean? They kind of, I kind of wore them out a little bit, maybe. But I love Trouble at the Henhouse, and I got to tell you, Music at Work is an album I have a really close relationship with. And part of the reason for that is I was living in the States. I went to University of Miami. Music I was down there for 6-7 years, and I'm from here in Ottawa, but when I went down there, I went to this record store. So I moved there in 2006. I went from Winnipeg to Miami. I was at U Manitoba for a year, and then I went down to U Miami for music too, which was great. And there was a record store, so CDs were still a thing, right? And but I remember in this used bin, they had 3 or 4 copies of Music at Work. And they were $2.99, and then there was a sign up. There was a special on anything in the bin, like used or whatever it was. They were still in the wrapper, but they were in the used bin. Any CD under $3, 49 cents. So I bought 3 or 4 copies of Music at Work for 49 cents each, and the person working there said, "Well, that can't be right." And then a manager came out and said, "Well, I guess I don't know if they made a mistake or whatever it was, but the CDs were supposed to be $2.99. I ended up getting them for 49 cents each."
Amazing.
Yeah, and I gave a few out to a few American friends, a few of my new American friends, to try and spread the gospel of Gord.
Yeah.
And anyway, I listened to that CD, and I still listen to it at the cottage. Actually, I listen to CDs up there, and I just absolutely love that album.
There's almost a lyric in there, I think. Almost 50 for a CD, $1.50 for a beer.
There you go.
That's right. Well done, Dan. Well done.
3 CDs.
It's funny. It's funny how you said that, and we'll get to you, Dan, to talk about your favorite. But like for me, I mean, obviously, Fully Completely was like one of those. That was like their most complete album as far as I was concerned. They're all different, but that one to me, I just like cover to cover. I found it was one of their better albums, and then the one in between Evolution is actually an album that is kind of near and dear to me for some reason. I don't know why. I think it was just the timing, maybe, but yeah, some of those great tunes on there. Can't be Nashville every night.
So I don't want to take up Dan's time here, but I got to tell you, playing in a band like we do, doing there's a certain amount of core material that you have to do, right? You have to do New Orleans, Blow It High Dough, Little Bones, 100th Meridian, 38 Years Old, etc. When you listen to tunes that you're not playing all the time, like my favorite Tragically Hip tune of all time, in a way it's Little Bones, but because I've played that song so much, and it's part of the reason we're called Little Bones, because I love that song so much, but my favorite Tragically Hip song ultimately is Sharks from Music at Work, which is not a popular tune at all. Yeah?
No, but if you're a huge fan, like you're gonna find the ones that are obscure a bit too, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Everybody loves all those other ones, but then you find the one that sort of sneaks in for you.
Yeah.
What about you, Dog?
What about me?
What's your favorite tune by the Tragically Hip?
I like 38 Years Old. I think it's a pretty good one.
Solid. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm more like I'm not into the more like you can rhyme off songs I've never heard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like I'm not as deep into the hip as Gus is, but and we do discuss whether they're the best Canadian band ever. And we have our beliefs on that, and I'm going to leave it at that. Considering I'm talking to guys who play the hip.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What about you, Dan? Is there an album that's
Yeah,
there for you?
Before we go to do that, I just Dave, he never asked you why you left Winnipeg to go to Miami, but I guess the answer was obvious. But
yeah. He was
40
after
below.
that Thompson girl there.
Yeah.
Girl, maybe, but yeah.
Yeah,
There'll be lots of those
made
clips.
40 below. No, but just so by the way, Dave got his not just his master's, but his doctorate when he was down there in jazz performance bass, whatever. So that's he's our official full-time professional musician, mentor to everybody else. My favorite album depends on the mood of the week or the day or the situation at home, because I'll put them on and just listen to them. But I guess I'd have to say Fully Completely if there was an album, just because it's of its completeness, no pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite song, Nautical, without a doubt.
Oh yeah, so good.
The only song doesn't have a verse chorus. It's just a story.
True.
It's just
that's
a
a
story.
good point. Yeah, I actually never thought of it that way, but that's true. And just such a great story, right?
Yeah.
Like, and especially when he played it live, because sometimes I'll throw on your favorites, which is like the live album, and listening to him just go off for a little bit, like. That's the part I missed the most when I saw them. I obviously on the last tour I saw them in Toronto and in Ottawa and in Kingston. So I was like, I got them all, and then I saw them in Bob Cajun outdoors in a farm field.
Yeah,
that was an amazing show. I saw them in upstate New York with 200 other people. I'm a huge fan, so it makes sense that when I was younger, I could go to all these shows. Now I probably couldn't go as much.
No, you
but
can't.
I have young children. But no, like I still. It's funny. It's a great way to put it, Dan. Is it's the mood, right? Like sometimes I'll put on Day for Night, and that brings me right back to high school for me. And I'm just like, I remember listening it to on my Discman, and like just like I still have the album, obviously, and it's just like. Takes me to another place. I don't know what it is, and it's like that for all music. But for me, that relationship I have with the hip, and especially Gordy. I mean, I love the whole band, but Gordy just always seemed to take us on these little trips, and You know, that song, even the song Thompson Girl that I referenced, is such a great tune. Like, it's rocking, and he tells this amazing story about being in Thompson, Manitoba. Like, it's amazing. Anyways.
Yeah, it's funny that you use the phrase that you did, because I'll often, and Dave knows this because he plays with me, but I'll often introduce Nautical because I get immersed in the song myself, and I'm just listening to the guys behind me, play it. And James Frew he does such an outstanding job of the Baker. He just, I'll just kind of go over and put my head by his amp and so I'll often introduce it as this song will take you to a different place if you let it.
Yeah.
I've said that a number of times, and you just said the same thing. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but I think it's fair to say that collectively is the band's favorite song to play.
Yeah.
And if it's not on the set list, somebody's going to hear it from James afterwards. James Frew wants that song on every set list, even if we're playing a 45-minute opening slot.
And it'll never happen because I do the set list on my computer, so it'll never not be on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of segues into the question I was going to ask next. Is there a song like that you guys are really tired of playing and you just kind of want to leave it off the set list, but you really can't?
Well, it's hard we have to leave some off because we do have to swap some, and I don't know. Like for me personally, we've been playing. We do like When the Wait into I'll Believe in You because there's a fast transition. You don't miss a beat, so it's good for continuity. And sometimes I'll park those on the encore list or something. But I don't know, Dave. Like, do you have anything? Like, I love them all. So
I think the obvious one, and I'm sure you know it as I'm about to say it, is New Orleans, because that's just been beaten to death. But I gotta say, every time we play it live, it's usually right when we're peaking. The crowd's sort of the energy levels there, so it gets renewed life every time we play it. So
plus, we do like a 14-minute version.
Yeah, we throw in a bunch of different things in the middle sometimes. Sort of an end of the night party kind of thing.
Well, we have,
Go ahead.
So, and we have one tradition we've been doing for years, and that's we end it with the rodeo song. But we do like a bit of Johnny Cash and Neil Young, Mr. Soul. So we'll do like Johnny Cash, Jeff sings that, and then we'll do Mr. Soul, just little tidbits of it.
Nice.
But we always end it with the rodeo song.
Nice.
Because
to be clear, we do it like the record, but we add stuff into the middle. It's like we always try to copy what's happening on the records, and not just what they've done live, or if they take liberties with solos. We don't take liberties with solos unless we extend something or add something in. But what's on the original record is what we aim to reproduce every show, every rendition of the song. It should be, in our minds, what was on the record. We have our own chances to do solos. We usually start, if we do 2 sets, our drummer will take a little solo at the beginning, and I'll get up and introduce him, and then I'll take a little bass solo, and then the guys will get up, and so we have our chances to do our own thing. Or like we do little bones to the end of the record form, and then we add on another guitar solo so that our guitar player, our great new guitar player, newish, Jeff Duvall, can rip out a solo, and you know what I mean. But we've already done the record version. That's really important to us.
And for New Orleans, though, it's no different than the Hip. Like they would play in the middle of it. In fact, I my interpretation of the first song in the Depression, second song in Depression Suite, New Orleans World, is about, if you listen to the lyrics, it's about the song New Orleans is sinking as being a world and entity, and you're in that entity. And he's wondering if the song will do it. Like, I wonder if the song does nothing. He talks about being online in the day for night room at the bathhouse. That's my interpretation of it. And there's also a part of that gimme, gimme, gimme. Dave's laughing because he's going like, Dan, you're full of shit. But I swear, there's a version that we had on our website, which I ran for years. It had a ranting version of New Orleans, and I started to get into the rodeo song. I go, gimme, 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 give me some, let's go to the rodeo. And that lyric is gimme, gimme, gimme. And I'm sure he stumbled on it, and like, it's, when you think about, he probably Googled all the New Orleans is sinking versions live, and he got little tidbits, and I don't know. That's my thought. But I'll stop there.
No, it's okay. We love it. We love hearing the story. It's all about the stories.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like that's an interesting take too, because yes, it's a song that like is overplayed. I mean, not overplayed, but certainly if everybody plays it, like you said on the radio, if you hear a hip song, it's traditionally that song, or it's sometimes you'll hear Little Bones and stuff like that, but like you won't hear like I said, Thompson Girl or something like that, right? Like that's just not what they'll do when they're on the radio. But when you're listening, when you see them live and like they open with like the Luxury, which is like one of like that song itself, and Flamenco and Sherpa, like all those songs that were kind of like trippy. I love that because that takes you to this like interesting place to like remember that in Toronto when I saw them on the second night, I think it was. That's what they opened with was the Luxury, and I was just like freaking out because it's not a song that you hear all the time, and I absolutely love that song. It's such a great opening, right? Like do. Yeah, I'm sure you love it, Dave. No,
I do, and I think that song, off the top of my head, that song and Trickle Down, I think really epitomized the Stones' influence in the Hips music.
Agreed.
That was a good tune, Trickle Down. Love that tune.
Yeah, right off their first album.
Yeah,
yeah. But yeah, even Gord St. Clair, when I saw him play with his band, he always has. I don't know if you noticed that he has it. Like I don't know if you do this, Dave, but his amp is always really loud. You always hear the bass. That's for sure.
I get shut down real quick if I get too loud.
Did you notice that though? Like, have you noticed that like you hear his bass like really loud?
No, I haven't noticed that. No, I've only seen them at big enough shows that I wouldn't be able to notice that.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, well, when I saw them so after Gord died, we went to Kingston. Actually, the two of us.
Yes, we did.
And his band that he was in, I played bass in, obviously opened for Steve Earle, like in Kingston. And awesome. It was awesome. And then, but all I can remember is like Gordy St. Clair's bass is really loud. Like all I can hear is
that and Rob showed up.
Yeah, well, they were all there. Rob and they were all there
because he was looking around to see if they're going to show up.
I would be too.
Yeah, Paul Anglo was there too.
Yeah, they were there. They were kind of just taking in the bands and stuff. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
It was cool. It was in Kingston too, and I think they all still live there. So.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I haven't stalked them in a while, so I don't know where they live.
Oh, I stalk them.
Yeah.
I stalk
You're on no flies. Not all over near their houses.
Oh, yeah, I'm not allowed near their house. Yeah. No, they love me, man. They love me. So going like when you guys plan your shows and stuff, do you obviously have other things going on? Do you find that the fact that you've played together for so long, like sometimes I know that you're probably planners and you have a set list and you want to stick to it, but there's sometimes like something when you're playing, you just feel something and then boom, you kick into a song that you didn't have on the list. Is that something that you would do?
Yeah, it does happen. There's always little changes happen, and what often happens is Dan and I have what I call committee meetings. I think of like while we're playing, we're rocking out, we're having a good time, but I'll go over to Dan or Dan will put his toe up to the set list on a certain tune. Like we're going to skip this one and he's directing traffic with his toe. And then I might say, well, what about this? And then we go to this one and then we'll skip and we'll rhyme off tunes and we'll usually come up with this. Dan's always where the buck stops because you have to somebody's got to make the call. So Dan makes the calls, except when we're doing festivals and I've worked out the contracts and I'm watching the time carefully, which I often am. So you can't take an extra 10 minutes or whatever, the New Orleans Jam or whatever. You have to be done at a certain time. Then I have to kind of time things and pick the songs. But yeah, Dan and I have these little whispering committee meetings during songs to decide sometimes what we're going to play next.
But normally, because we have a certain set list that we can play around, and like I said, some songs will get parked for a few shows and then bring them back, but we don't go too deep in the catalog, like I was saying earlier. So the advantage of that too is, like we go like 10 years without a practice. like you just don't need to practice. Like, you play this stuff enough, and I listen to it all the time. So I practice when I'm cutting the grass and driving in the car, But yeah,
Yeah, we still we've had to rehearse in recent years because of our quote unquote new guy, and then when we pick up new to us tunes, we'll get together and rehearse. But yeah, further to what Dan was saying, I've gone back now and practiced tunes that I hadn't touched for a long time, but I have better equipment now. A lot of the stuff I was learning on cassette,
Yeah.
So now I hear the bass sometimes and I go, wow, I didn't know that was there. I didn't know that was happening. So I think in recent years too, for about the last close to 10 years, we've gone back and really done deep dives on everything to make sure everything's authentic to the record.
that's true. I remember the Courage I was singing. I was singing a part that Gord didn't sing, and I've been doing it for years. And Jeff says, I don't think Gord's singing there. So of course now with YouTube, there's lots of live stuff. Sure enough, he was right. So I had to retrain my brain.
But I don't know, like, Dog and I talked about this quite often about, first of all, covers, right? And you're obviously playing covers, but do you guys kind of want to make your own sort of sound? Like, obviously you want to make it your own, but still have, not get away too far from what it was originally?
Not when we're doing Little Bones. It's like we try to be true, like Dave was saying, and in fact, that was part of that kind of rockumentary I was talking about. That was like the We Kings were doing their We Kings spin was they were writing their own stuff, and that was their story. The Practically Hip, the lead singer was trying to quit smoking. That was their story, and our story was kind of like we're the guys that have to make it just like the record. Like we're retentive or whatever. It's worth watching if you're interested.
I am.
Yeah.
I don't like that documentary.
I know.
It's like reality TV. Like they staged shots with us.
Yeah.
Like they had us drive down a hill in a place we weren't, like on the way to a gig, and in a direction we weren't actually going. So they had stage shots. They had fake things like reality TV. It was pretty bad. And
they're selling something, right?
They made us all look bad, but they went easy on us. But they were really the singer for Practically Hip. I think he's awesome, and he's great on stage and everything. And Dan sang with those guys when they came to town, but they kept playing this one. He was a little flat on a note, and they kept playing that over and over again. It was really not a fair depiction of how good they are, because they're really good.
I agreed. I was gonna, like, in your opinion, and Dan, maybe you'll speak to this the best, but did you find because if you remember Gordy, like in the early days, he didn't go off on little discussions during the show, but then when did that sort of start? Do you think? Would you say timeline wise?
Oh, I think they were still doing. It was still like the first 2 or 3 albums. I think is when they did. I think because that's Double Suicide Monologue is Highway Girl, right?
Yeah.
And there's a number of other ones, like not just the Killer Whale Tank version, but there's another one too that's he talks about like being in the bloodstream, as amoebas, it being in the bloodstream. So I think I still think they were mostly the first, like I said, up to here and maybe Road Apples eras, I think. The Roxy and Elsewhere, I think, has some good rants on it, right?
Yeah.
Looking up there because I think that's where it might be in my CD player right now. So it's yeah.
That's true. I mean, it's. I think that he has. I always said it was because he's stoned. He liked to smoke weed, but it was.
Could be.
Yeah, it was like man, and then he just sort of swings it into something, and then. But the cool thing about it, and is that he always brought it all the way back, right? And the band knew what he was doing and knew how long he'd go, and then they brought
communicated
it back, right?
on stage really well, I think.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's awesome, and it was always I still enjoy finding the tidbits in those rants that become, songs. Like there's all his rants. There's a lot of lyric. He would try the lyrics in his rants. Either that or they came up as part of the rant, and he was like, "Oh, I think I'll keep that in his little notebook or something." But
Yeah.
even when he did his first or second solo tour, he played in, I think, Boston or someplace on the East Coast, and it was back in a day when internet was fairly new and streaming was really new, and I was listening to an audio streaming of it live, and he goes, "Oh, I've always wanted to do a Neil Young song," and he says, I think it was when you dance. Then he says, "I've always wanted to do another Neil Young song," and he plays "Tonight's the Night," and then that, how many years later, right? You play your "Tonight's the Night," right, and don't, and sweep the floor and sweep out a little bit on your way out. You might make it. That lyric, I think, came from that night, because
It's probably,
I just find those little tidbits are like, fuck, that's cool.
yeah, it is. And he always had his notebook with him. Like he would be driving, they'd be driving cross country, and that's how he found like lyrics about, the luxury when he was at that hotel or motel, and then, like the even flamenco, and yeah, he was an interesting guy, man. He was such a poet, right? And I think Poets, the album itself, is sort of like that's him, like sort of, he wanted to kind of, like, obviously the guys played the band, like the music in the background, but I feel like he wrote that album really kind of coming out as a poet, really. I mean,
that's the right time.
Yeah. I think it was just, that was when that was like the height of what they had come out of, right? And then that album itself isn't not, it's not as well known, but certainly I love that album. Phantom Power was a great album.
And Dog, you mentioned that you're not a hip expert as much as Gus.
No, not even close.
I'm in your shoes compared to Dan. And can I show you guys something my little niece gave me for Christmas?
Yeah, please.
This just happened to be sitting on my desk here among a million other unorganized books and notes and stuff. But it's a Tragically Hip alphabet book.
The hip from A to Z.
Yeah, it's the Tragically Hip ABC, and it's like A is for a head by a century, and it's got a little card. So
I need that book.
Our New Year's Eve gig, they had us set up in an area where they out in Campbellford where they had dinner, and I went through the book. There was a bunch of us down there, there's some friends and relatives and some guys from the town or whatever. And I went through the book and we played a guessing game, and I said, name the title of a hip tune that starts with the letter A and B, C. And we went through the whole alphabet, the whole book, and it was we made a game out of it. And eventually, I just had to tell Dan to stop playing because he wasn't missing a letter. Like, he just knows so much about the hip. He's such a true fan,
Yeah, Gus is too, and it's great. I mean, we all have our bands, right? We have that one band that we just know the stupidest things about, and it's just
April Wine.
yeah, that's his band. Yeah,
For you.
yeah. I just
He's
wait.
a huge April Wine fan.
Yeah.
Oh,
interesting.
we played with them in '91, I think, or no, not
What?
'91, 2000,
Like,
2001.
maybe 2000, yeah.
Yeah, at the Russell Fair.
Yeah, we opened for them there. Actually, just in the summer, I opened for the new singer for April Wine. He has a blues band, and his blues band was playing at a festival out near Perth, and we opened for him. And he had a really great trio playing with him.
Cool. Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
Oh, no.
It's not April Wine anymore to me.
No,
So
that's
Yeah,
true.
He's a traditionalist. It's like, I don't think the Tragically Hip will ever be the Tragically Hip again. Like, that's just not, they'll never replace, unless they call Dan Hiltz up and he goes up there. But you know what I mean? Like, do you think that that's possible that they would do that? I don't
think that they will. I think they might do something like they did on the Junos or whatever that one time with was it Feist? But that was cool. Like, that's a cool song. It's a good life. But yeah, they'd probably do something like that again, or something for charity like that. But I don't think they would. I hope they don't. Like,
Yeah.
I love, as much as I love the music, I hope they don't.
It'd be cool to have like an event where they just, like you said, for charity and stuff, and they have different singers come out and do different songs. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, like they just did for Willie, right?
Yeah, like it'd be cool to see. Okay, so we're going to take 2 hours to the hip, and we're going to have so and so do this song. We're going to have so and so do this song. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I think, but again, it's just for the traditionalists like Dan and I, it seems, and probably Dave too a little bit, but not quite as much as the two of us. But like, I just couldn't see it. I just can't see it.
No.
And like they have their own little side projects, which is great, and I follow this. Obviously, the strippers are awesome, and Paul Langla's like his solo stuff's really good, and like you can't do it. It's almost like. I don't know.
Sacrilegious.
Yeah, it's sacrilege.
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
a good word to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I saw Sinclair's band there when he at the Neat Coffee House there in Burnstown last year or the year before, he did a show there, and I talked to him briefly, and I just said, "Thanks for keeping the music going." And he said, "Gord wouldn't have it any other way."
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, just the best.
And there's just certain bands that shouldn't go on like after the singer's gone.
Well, he was just such a presence.
Yeah, I know, and
right?
that's
and
and
the other guys
were
were
the band. Right?
Yeah, and they were just happy to be kind of in the background, and all talented, and all best friends from school and all that.
100%. Yeah.
And Gordy was just like they let him just
Yeah.
go be yourself.
Yeah. Love over money. 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll just now that we're talking about Canadian bands, excluding the hip, top Canadian bands, your favorite Canadian band, other than the hip.
Does Neil Young count as Canadian?
Sure. Yeah, he's Canadian. He's born here.
It's Neil Young for me.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Any version that comes
Dave's
with
right.
Neil. Yeah.
Crazy Horse or with CSNY, any of those? Yeah.
Any of them.
All right. And Dave?
Yeah, I'm a Neil Young fanatic. I'm a Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young fanatic. I actually played with the band Four Way Street. We did a tribute. I was a big fan of those guys 20 plus years ago, and I got to play with them in their last few years of their run. Absolutely adore Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young and Neil Young. I love Rush. Big Rush fan. Got a Rickenbacker kicking around here somewhere because of Getty.
Nice.
You're good. That's a true bassist right there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome.
I gets it.
See, like again, we've had this discussion about Rush, and I realize how amazing they are. I just don't like. I don't like gravitate towards it. Maybe just because of Getty's voice, and I understand that. Like, but like you listen to Tom Sawyer, and it's like this like musical journey. It's unreal.
It's a tough song to play on the drums too.
Apparently, yeah. Yeah, I mean, somebody can speak to that. For sure.
Neil makes it look easy, but
Yeah. Is he the greatest drummer of all time?
in my opinion, he is.
Yeah. You think so, guys?
I think he would be the first one to say he certainly isn't.
Mm-hmm.
But he's, when he did the Burnin' for Buddy, the tribute to Buddy Rich with all the different drummers, I mean, he'd be the first to tell you he was not one of the stronger players on that album. When he had with Steve Gadd and Vinnie Colaiuta, so Dave Weckl, I think, was on there. So you got these crazy, amazing drummers. And Neil went and took lessons with Freddie Gruber as well. But Neil, I think, has his own voice, with his lyrical poetry, similar to, in some ways, I think like the Canadian poet, the great Canadian poet in the same league as Gord Downie. His lyricism and his style and his approach to the instrument, I think it's an original voice, and I absolutely love it. Strictly speaking, as a drummer, technically, I think he would have been the first one to tell you that he called himself a perpetual student.
Yep.
But for rock music, yeah, he's pretty a force.
I'm just biased because he was Canadian.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, that's such a subjective thing.
Oh, it's very subjective.
He was very technical, and he had like a ton of. I mean, he had like what a 190-piece drum set or something like that. Like, yeah, he was a force for sure. If you were to pick a Canadian artist like that's kind of coming out now, who would be able to cover a Tragically Hip song, who would it be?
Besides us?
Yeah.
Yes, excluding you guys
excluding
and the
you
Wheat
guys,
Kings and the Practically Hip.
Yeah. Maybe one of the younger bands that are out there, like,
Good question.
I'm thinking too.
There's a guy that I actually play with a lot out. He lives in Stittsville there, Tyler Keeley. He's a Canadian songwriter that I think is among the best there's ever been out of Canada. And Terry Tufts is another guy. I don't know, but interpreting hip songs might be a different animal. But as far as just Canadian musicians and songwriters, Terry Tufts would certainly be at the top of my list, as would Tyler Keeley.
And vocalist Terry's so awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know. We played once again with open for Big Wreck and Yukon Blonde. Yukon Blonde, maybe.
Good band. Very good band. Yeah, good point. I think the Trues always play a song by them too.
Yes.
They always cover them.
Guys, speaking of other Canadian bands, I got to go play jazz with the Beached Whalers, so I got to dip out here. I'm playing at Irene's very soon, so I got to get going. So
Well, can you answer one question real quick?
Yeah.
Because we ask everybody. So is it 80s or 90s music for you?
I think I got to go 80s.
There you go.
Us Dave stick together, baby.
Yeah, Dave, stick together.
That's it.
Yeah. Dan, you?
I will say 90s just because I know that's yours, and that way it'll be a tie.
Yeah, my man.
Because I watched the last episode, so I knew I was ready for that question.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
I actually looked at it, but I kind of both. But I think probably the 90s just because of like Nirvana and Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
To clarify, I was talking about the 1790s because that's what I was lecturing on today.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. As a prof, you're probably going after
There we
it.
go.
I'd be interested to ask you about music in the 1790s. But
Yeah, who was hip back then?
Ooh.
Well, we looked at something from Corelli today, Arcangelo Corelli. We looked at Vivaldi's Spring Concerto.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. We're building up to Bach in the Baroque period, Bach and Handel.
Of course, yeah, you got to build up to Bach.
Do you know any Bach?
Sure.
All right.
Past the Bach.
Okay. Well, Dave, you can go. If you have
Well,
to go,
thank
you
you.
gotta go.
Gus just said you can go, so you can
If
go.
you want to stay, please. But I know if you don't feel impolite, if you have to.
Yeah, but thanks.
Yeah, we'll see you at the show.
Have a great set tonight.
Have fun.
Thanks,
See you,
Dave.
Davey.
All right, Dan, let's talk about Dave now.
Yeah. So you guys have a couple shows coming up, and how does it do you have a goal for this summer? Are you trying to play any big festivals? What's next for you guys?
They just seem to come. We don't really work hard at getting shows. We love doing what we do, but we don't play every week. We do it for the love of it. So I think we normally do although it's not known for this year yet, but we normally do the craft beer fest in Orleans. We haven't missed one of those yet. Canada Day is always a lot of fun. We don't have it booked yet, but those are fun. And we play the Overflow probably twice a year at least. And those, but it's not like in 17 was our kind of bigger year. I think we did the festival up in Mattawa. We did Valley East Days up in Valley East, which is near Sudbury, and that was a lot of fun. But we don't have a lot booked right now. We typically just book, a couple months in advance, and which is difficult because everybody has their other projects. So you have to get a date and normally they'll sub their stuff out if they have another booking. You have to decide what they want, Bones or the other show.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm assuming that Canada Day would probably be a big one.
Yep.
What's better than on Canada Day listening to the hip?
I listen to it a lot on Canada Day.
Yeah.
What's the most Canada Day song by the Tragically Hip?
I always introduce Bill Barilko as a Canadian, and when we did the one in Chen Park in Brampton, that was a lot of fun. There's so many, but that one, because it's hockey. It's about a Canadian hockey player. I don't know.
It's the Leafs, man.
I would have to say pretty much any one, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Bill Baroque's that's a good choice for sure.
Disappeared. Well, 50 Mission Cap is like, I find that's such, like, I'm not a Leaf fan whatsoever. I actually love the fact that they took the slap shot in the empty net and all that melee that happened. But that song itself, like, I find it such a rocking song. Like, it just, like, really gets me going. I don't know. Would you feel the same, Dan?
100%.
When you play it, I'm sure it's probably
Yeah,
even
and
more.
I normally introduce that one by just reciting the back of the hockey card. When just as I'm talking, well, maybe you'll see it in March the 1st. But it's, Pro Set 1991, card 340. It pretty much tells the story.
Do you suspect that that's where he got it? Like, he just sort of saw
100%.
the card?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, he says right in the lyric that he stole from a hockey card.
It's true. Yeah. I guess, you know what, that's funny, like, Gordy he never lied to you. And he left little, he left hints. There was always hints. Yeah. Oh yeah, there it is, look.
Yep.
The end of innocence.
He was on a fishing trip.
Yeah.
He was. Yeah.
Maybe if he hadn't gone, at least would have won the cup since then.
Well, they did win the cup.
It's all Bill Baroque's fault.
That's when they found it.
I know. I know the song.
Okay. But that was a long time ago, 1967.
Yeah, I was alive.
Yeah, I wasn't.
It's almost like they had to find him. They had to win the cup before they found him.
Yeah.
Because I think they found him after the cup, not the other way. I used to think it was the other way. They couldn't win a cup until he was found. But it's, if you look at when the cup, the playoffs happen, it's in the spring. I think they found him in the summer.
Yeah. But back then it was only, in 67, there was only, it was still the original 6?
No, I think there was 12.
Was it more than that?
Yeah. I'm not sure.
67?
No, because, it was 69 that all the teams came, I think.
I think so, yeah. 69 or 71.
So they really haven't they only had to beat 5 other teams. It's kind of a joke.
Yeah, but back in the day, Montreal was a powerhouse, right? They got all the French Canadian players and
Larry Robinson from Marvelville over here.
Yeah, exactly. Very French guy.
He wasn't French at all, actually. He's a very nice guy.
I'm teasing.
Cool. I really appreciate your time tonight, Dan, and we really look forward to seeing the show. Like, I've seen you before, but I didn't. I was a younger guy and didn't really take it all in as much as I am going to now. I think especially because they're gone, right?
It's going to be a busy place
because Gordy's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we normally do pretty well there. I think the last 3 times we played there, it was sellouts. But it's it's a good 400 people in there. But that's the best. I mean, I have the most fun when everybody's into it, and we've never played there yet, and we played there 10 times. This will be the 11th time. I've never played there where the crowd's not been into it. And Mitch and Brad are just such good hosts.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Now that leads to a question: have you ever played a place where the crowd wasn't into it?
Sure. Who hasn't? Like any if people say they haven't, I would question it. Yeah, it's just normal. Sure. Like you play places where you just give it your all, and at the end you're like, thank you both. You
two guys were great. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. But then you just turn around and play your music for you, which is normally what I do anyways, what we do. This is why I do it. So I love the music. There's nothing like it. Yeah. Especially if you can make it happen. It's just, it'll take you to a different place.
Yeah. Have you guys ventured into the States to play?
No, we almost did, I think, a couple of times, but we have not.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because the hip wasn't really big in the States, right?
It's fine. There's pockets.
Yeah, there's especially in upstate New York.
You know what I mean?
When I saw them, like I mentioned, we were in Messina or something like that. There was like me and a couple buddies, and then like 100 other people.
Yeah, you're saying. But that's awesome for us. That's understandable. It's along the border, right? So you're going to get that kind of that radio airflow for that. But I heard a story about Rush being huge in Texas, which is weird. So it's like pockets for Canadian bands. And I just don't, I was wondering if the Hip ever, burst through in some, like Oklahoma.
Seattle knows them quite well.
Yeah.
Pearl Jam always kind of drop them up all the time too, and
I think anywhere you have Canadians.
Yeah,
yeah,
Like,
sure.
Florida. They're big in Florida.
Yeah.
Our 11th province.
Well, I think that also it's so Canadiana, right? It's like the lyrics are so Canadian that it's hard to maybe resonate with
For Americans to understand, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Or not pinpointing Americans, but people in general.
Again, and the thing about Gord's lyrics, you can interpret them lots of different ways, but I've always interpreted the line in "Ahead by a Century" as "You're ahead by a century and disappointing is getting me down" to be about the States, because like they had their bicentennial, pretty close to when we had our centennial, so they're ahead by a century, right?
yeah.
But he says it's a love song, and if you know the original profane lyrics, they're profane. Sometimes we'll do those just for the hell of it. You have to read the audience.
Yeah. Do it at Overflow. It'll be that audience for sure.
One person will love it.
Cool. You know what, man? Dan is actually obviously he plays their music, but he knows. I think you read into the music differently than I do because you actually find the little hints and then you analyze it. Maybe because you're singing them quite more often than I am, obviously. But do you feel that way? Like you're always trying to analyze what he's saying in his lyrics?
Yeah, depending on the song. I wouldn't say every song I do that, but for me, I have to personalize it. The more personal a song is when you're performing it, the more, number one, you can remember it. Number two, you just have so much more fun with it. I never want to be the guy just getting the job done and getting paid because you have a contract.
Yeah.
It's not. I want to be up there enjoying life. Life's too short not to, and hope in some way that if you're into the hip, and a lot of people are, that what we do translates and everybody's having a great time.
It does resonate. Like if you watch a singer and he's just going, and he's not, then you're like, what the hell? But when you get into it and the singer's having a great time, the band is tight. It's fun to watch as a music goer. I love that.
Me too.
It's not going through the motions, right?
And I don't think Dan's the type to go through the motions.
I don't think so either. I don't think I've really come across anybody so far that has, like, the bands that we've been seeing lately, all these young bands, local bands, man, they leave it all on the stage. It's great.
It's really good. Did you notice that in the Ottawa scene is getting a lot bigger?
Yeah, I noticed since COVID, people have a different respect, I think, for music. They're even willing to pay a little more to get out to see a live show. Before COVID, it wasn't. Plus, the other thing is, when you've been playing for 30-some years, the guys that were going to school, bopping up and down to the song, are now have kids. The kids have moved out, and they can actually come out and see the show again. So I got people coming up to us, kind of going like, "Oh, I saw you back when I was in school, and now I can kind of come out again." I was like, it's funny.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
And that's the longevity of the music.
Yes, absolutely.
It means you're good,
and that's a testament to the hip, right? Because the longevity of what,
sure.
You know what I mean?
But them too, like the
I mean that's what I'm saying. Like in 30 years, I mean, to be playing the songs of a band 30 years later, that's a testament of how good they were and are.
What's your favorite lyric? Last question. Or is there a lyric that you play? You say every day?
There's some that we don't do though, like maybe a prostitute could teach you how to take a compliment, like that. Like those lyrics are like lyrics like that are just it's just like, where did that come from? Or even like I think this has been quoted before, but the whole Willie Nelson, like, could have been the Willie Nelson when you talk about weed. Like little tricks like that. But I don't know, there's just so many. Like, again, it depends on how you interpret the lyric and how deep you go into the meaning of it. Mm-hmm. And for me, like, I could pick to answer your question, I could pick out pretty much any album. And once I listen to the album, I could answer your question. But I can't do it right now because there's just too many.
Mm-hmm. Could have been the wine, could have been the Willie Nelson, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Very true. I know that lyrics too.
Because everybody, like, nobody knew what Willie Nelson was, and I was just like,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Well, Dan, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and spending some time with us, and we look forward to the show. And we'll all definitely come up and see you. You can't miss me. I'm going to be in full Tragically Hip gear from my days, bro. So.
Oh, look at you.
Well, come up and say hi, and you'll see that painting above the bar there too. I have one of the copies of it. Sean Sis did the photo, and he at the concert, and I got that from him from my collection. But there's one hanging over the bar at the overflow. It's pretty amazing. Cool. So it's very much a hip atmosphere for you.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I have one similar, but it was like the one that's the Man Machine poem in the bottom, and it's like him and just like waving goodbye. Yeah. It's a great photo. Great photo.
Yeah.
Okay, Dan. Well, thanks again.
Okay, guys. Take care. We'll see you.
Yeah, be sure to thank Dave for us too.
Will do.